Felix wasn't sure if anybody in the sparse audience actually knew his uncle, or if they just showed up out of respect. A grand total of 12 people, and that number included his dead uncle peering lifelessly out of his extravagant casket. Of course, people knew of him, or knew about him, but nobody actually knew him at the personal level, not well enough to attend the funeral at least. His reclusion had only become worse in his later life. Rumor had it that he had not left his estate for a decade, or had a single face-to-face conversation in 15 years. Uncle Oscar, as everyone called him, was as wealthy as he was reclusive. A shrewd businessman during his 40s and 50s, he had no need to do anything other than watch his investment accounts grow. And that is all anyone had assumed he did for the last 20 years. Having never actually met Uncle Oscar, Felix didn't expect to receive any sort of inheritance, nor did his sister, one of the other 12 in attendance. To their mutual surprise, they were invited to the estate after the funeral. The house loomed on the cliffside, a Victorian beast with turrets and gables jutting like angry elbows against the gray sky. Felix and his sister Clara stood at the wrought iron gates, hesitant to enter. The wind carried the scent of salt and decay from the sea below. "Did you ever meet him?" Clara asked, staring up at the mansion. "I can't remember meeting him myself." "Nope, not once." Felix pushed open the gate with a rusty screech. They walked up the gravel path, their footsteps drowned by the wind. The front door swung open before they could knock, revealing a sharp-featured man in a dark suit. "Felix and Clara," he intoned, nodding at them both. He stepped aside to let them in. "We have been expecting you. This won't take long. It seems your uncle left you both a small trinket." The inside was as fantastic as it was unsettling. "I would have never guessed he was so obsessed with pirates," exclaimed Clara. The entry was dominated by a massive chandelier, each crystal shaped like a tiny skull. Nautical maps covered the walls, and glass cases filled with what looked like genuine doubloons lined the hallway. "More than just pirates," Felix said, picking up a brass sextant from a table. He was obsessed with the sea. The man in the suit reappeared silently, as though conjured. "If you would follow me." He led them through dim corridors crammed with maritime relics, tattered flags, rusted swords from times unknown, and faded portraits of grim-faced sailors. Lanterns swung from the ceiling on heavy chains, casting odd shadows that seemed to shift as they passed. Felix could almost hear the creak of timbers and the crash of distant waves. The very air tasted briny. Their guide led them upstairs to the largest room of the house. A sizable desk was positioned to face the sea, with a large wooden wheel placed directly behind it. Sitting at this desk created the illusion of being the captain of a grand ship. "This is where we believe Uncle Oscar spent most of his time. Now to the trinkets he wished to bestow upon you." He packed them up nicely in these 2 boxes himself. There was a note, but all it said was, "To Felix and to Clara." Felix took one of the boxes and opened it. A large golden pirate's coin glittered back, its surface etched with strange markings. He felt its weight in his palm, heavier than it should be. Clara opened hers and revealed a similar coin. She traced the embossed symbols with her thumb. "Is this some kind of joke?" she asked, glancing at Felix. The man in the suit observed them with a detached curiosity, bowing slightly. "Uncle Oscar was very particular about these being your only inheritance." Felix nodded more to himself than to their solemn host and placed the coin back into the box. Clara followed suit, shutting the lid with a snap that seemed to echo ominously. "Isn't it strange?" she murmured as they made their way through the cavernous halls. "He has all this, and only leaves us a couple of coins?" "It's Uncle Oscar," Felix replied. "It's all strange with him." Over the following week, Felix couldn't help but wonder about Uncle Oscar's life. What was he like as a young man? Why did he become so reclusive? He turned the mysterious coin over in his hands. Felix's life wasn't going anywhere fast. He was more concerned with hiking, partying, and socializing. He worked just enough to pay his meager bills, and that was it. But something about Uncle Oscar made him strive for more. Over the ensuing months, Felix found himself drawn to the bizarre coin. He researched the symbols, spending late nights hunched over a glowing screen in the cluttered sanctum of his apartment. The markings were old, older than he could have imagined. Glyphs, attributed to a lost sea cult, known for its dark rituals and arcane seafaring knowledge. A new passion ignited. He also began searching for higher-paying work. A new curiosity enveloped him. What had Uncle Oscar done to make so much money? Clara also began obsessing over the coin. A young therapist struggling to build a new practice, it seemed like being in the presence of the coin ignited a new fire beneath her. A desire to succeed, no matter the cost, soon enveloped her. It didn't take very long for both Felix and Clara to start earning more money. Felix had learned that Uncle Oscar made his money from real estate and embarked on a similar path. Clara realized that combining her childhood passion of hypnosis with her therapy sessions was extremely profitable. Over the next 5 years, both Felix and Clara became enormously successful, but at a cost. They both had neglected friendships and family. Neither had been on a date since before obtaining the coins. Felix kept justifying his new obsession for money. "If only I do this another year or two, I'll have enough money to stop forever, get back to things that are more important to me." But even as he promised himself the same thing, night after night, he knew that he was lying to himself. His greed had become all-consuming. He knew that he would never have enough. It was all because of that coin. He didn't know whether he should thank his uncle and the coin for the success he had found, or curse them both and rid them from his mind. It wasn't until his sister Clara was arrested that he knew for certain that the pirate coin was destroying them. He met her at the jailhouse to bail her out. "What happened?" he asked. "Don't worry about it. One of my clients recorded a conversation we had during therapy and turned it over to the police. It's still really controversial to use hypnosis during therapy. But don't worry too much about me. By the time you got me out of there, I had pretty much everyone in a trance. They would have willingly let me out in another couple hours. Don't tell me that you have been using hypnosis to scam your clients, like you mentioned to me a while ago." She responded, "Of course I am. I couldn't keep living in squalor. This is the most successful I have ever been. I can't just stop. Just listen to yourself. I think I've had enough of these coins. I'm going to get rid of mine." "But Felix, a long time ago I tried to get rid of mine too. It found its way back to me. You can't just get rid of it. Maybe you're right. Maybe I have become a bit greedy. But how can we get rid of them?" Felix didn't have an answer. He didn't realize that Clara had already tried to dispose of the pirate's coin and had failed. I'm going to do some more research into Uncle Oscar. We need to figure out how the coins came into his possession. I read a little bit about him when he was a young adult. He was a sports enthusiast. He was a swimmer, a rock climber, and an adventurer. He traveled all over the world. Very interesting, responded Felix. Then he found the pirates' coins? Yeah, somewhere in Spain. Majorca, I think. In a place where you can climb the cliffs high above the ocean without a rope. Surprised that Clara had already done some research, he promised her that he would take both of their coins back to Majorca, find where they came from, and try to return them. He wasn't expecting her to agree, but perhaps the few days she had spent in prison had weakened her connection to the cursed pirate coin. Yeah, go ahead. I keep it under my pillow. Just go get it before I get back home and change my mind. Felix rushed over to Clara's house, entered it using the spare key she had given him, and found the pirate's coin. Got it, he exclaimed, when Clara picked up the phone. With both pirate coins in his pocket, he made last-minute reservations for a flight straight to Majorca. A few hours later, the plane roared to life, its engines trying to drown out Felix's thoughts as he flew across the Atlantic. The coins were in his pocket, a weight that felt heavier with each passing minute. Did he really have to get rid of them? Majorca was vibrant, the streets bustling with tourists and the scent of the sea thick in the air. But Felix wasn't here for vacation. He rented a small apartment overlooking the cliffs and spent days searching for any trace of Uncle Oscar's past. One evening, he managed to find some older people who were native to Majorca. One elderly woman recalled a legend of a cursed treasure lost by a notorious pirate lord 800 years ago. Felix listened intently as she described the obsession and madness that befell anyone who claimed it. You look just like him, she rasped, gripping his arm with surprising strength. It must have been 50 years ago. I was still in my youth. In fact, I think I remember the place where he found that treasure. We used to climb together when he visited the island. When he found those coins, his personality shifted. He left richer than when he arrived, but lost more than you'll ever know. Thank you for the information, Felix responded. Can you show me where you think he found the treasure? How about we meet up here tomorrow at 8 in the morning? I'll show you the spot. The next morning, Felix met the woman outside the restaurant. This way, she said, leading him through narrow lanes that snaked toward the ocean. The sun was bright, casting long shadows as they walked in silence. When they reached the cliffs, Felix was taken aback by their sheer height. Below, waves crashed against the rocks. Here, she said simply, pointing to a thin trail that wound along the edge. Follow this trail. It gets close to the edge of the cliff a few times, giving hikers great views of the ocean. At the second overlook, climb down about 25 feet. It's safe if you are careful. There is a hole in the cliff that leads to a cave system. I'm sure you'll find the treasure from there. Felix hiked to the overlook that the elderly woman had mentioned and peered over the precipice. It was dizzying and dangerous, but he felt a thrill run through him at the challenge. For a moment, he hesitated. How badly did he really want it? Was it worth the potential fall? With a steadying breath, Felix began his descent. The cliff was jagged and the rough stone bit into his palms. Reaching the cave's mouth, he squeezed through a narrow opening and dropped down into darkness. His heart pounded with excitement. He switched on a small flashlight, its beam cutting through the void to reveal glistening stalactites and uneven ground. He pushed deeper into the cave, the air thick and humid. The coins in his pocket seemed to pull him forward. He came upon a chamber where the ceiling arched high above. In its center lay a stone altar, worn with age and covered in strange markings. On top of the altar was a small wooden treasure chest. Coins identical to his own overflowed from it, their dull gold glinting in the gloom. He grabbed the 2 pirates' coins out of his pocket and stared at them. Did he really want to give up the power and wealth they brought? Finally, with a resolve that surprised even him, Felix placed the coins onto the altar. He took a step back, expecting relief, but the treasure held his attention, and he couldn't pull himself away. With a sudden movement, he reached for the treasure. He placed all the pirates' coins back inside the wooden box, shut its ancient lid, and zipped it up in his backpack. A surge of adrenaline shot through his body. It was his. It was all his. Greed overwhelmed him. Suddenly he knew what he was going to do. Businesses he would start. Scams, fraud, and varying plots. He was going to go much further than even Uncle Oscar had gone. He felt like his ambition and greed had no end, and he laughed at himself as he realized that this was all he had ever wanted. He heaved himself towards the entrance of the cave, his backpack full of the treasure weighing him down. As he made it closer, the sound of waves and wind gave him more energy, prodding him forward. Hauling the treasure up the final 25 feet of the cliff required Herculean strength, energy surging through him. He had the strength. The cliff, however, did not. Just as he neared the top, one of the rocks he was using as a foothold crumbled away. He tried to reposition it, but the added force to his hands caused both of his handholds to break simultaneously. Felix careened off the cliff, backpack still strapped to him. The roar of the ocean swallowed his scream, and as he hit the water hard, everything went black. And that's where Felix still rests, right next to his treasure, dreaming about untold riches even from beyond the grave. The trail has since been blocked off, and all signs pointing to it have been removed. If you try to discuss Felix or the treasure, people will look at you in confusion. Either that, or they will swear you to silence, as if even the smallest acknowledgement of the existence of the treasure might curse them too.